Hi, this is Patty Hodge at Dr. Nurses Rock. And this video is one of a series of 30 videos that we're producing throughout the month of April on topics related to grief.
Hmm.
And today's special guest is Stephen McDonnell. You will remember Stephen McDonnell is a social worker. He's a friend, and he was the first person I ever interviewed here on YouTube on Dr. Nurses Rock.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yes, you were. So, Stephen, this month, we're producing videos on grief in honor of the 10th anniversary of the passing of a loved one. And I asked if you wanted to be interviewed on grief, and you said yes, but you weren't going to tell me on what. So this is a surprise for all of us.
All right. Well, I think where I want to start is actually right where we just started with me not getting your email. I didn't realize it, but I'm grieving. And I am just overwhelmed with life. I mean, that's what I want to say is I had a friend of mine a few weeks ago, maybe more than a few weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and she was really mad at me for my silence. I wasn't, she had sent me a text or something and I didn't get back to her. And so I wrote back to her and I said, I don't know what's going on with me this winter, but I am overwhelmed. I do not have time for emails and phone calls and paperwork. I'm not returning anything. I'm just stuck. I thought it was just a winter thing. And she's a psychotherapist too. And she knows that I've had these two surgeries in my life that have changed my life. And she said to me, I think you're experiencing ambiguous grief. That's what she called it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that term meant. The way she meant it was, I'm grieving for all the life I never lived, and I didn't even know it. So I thought about that, and it was interesting. I thought about that. I even took that to my own therapist. And I don't think that's completely true. But although the word grief struck me, and what I found out in these last 6 weeks or so is I had a very good friend of mine die in September. My friend Neil died. Neil and I went to high school together.
Yes, I remember now.
And I live now in Long Island where I met you. And I came to Long Island when I was 14 to go to high school. I grew up in Philadelphia. And I came to Long Island and I met Neil and I went to high school with him. And I was sort of adopted by his family. So I knew his family. And what I realized is, so Neil died in September, and when I moved, where I moved here on Long Island recently, 3 years ago, Neil and his wife lived around the corner from me. And they have been handicapped and in their recent years. And I've been taking care of them for the last 3 years. In a way, I've been helping take care of them. And I just realized that, well, my friend saying that I was grieving, the word grief really struck. I'm really grieving. And I thought about it some more. Am I grieving his death? You know, he died in September. And then what I've realized since then, here's our topic, maybe a couple topics in here already we can talk about. But I'm grieving more than Neil. Neil was the witness to my 50 years, the last 50 years of my life.
Mhm.
And I'm grieving the witness is gone.
Yes.
And there was nobody like him in my life. I mean, he met my grandparents, he met my parents, you know, he knew everything that I've been through in the last 50 years. And I don't have anybody else in my life that was like him that could go all the way back to that. And we could tell stories and things about childhood, you know, teenage years onward, stories and routines and jokes and story, you know, all those stories. I just don't have him in my life. So that's the grief that I've been going through. And I thought it was just winter. I mean, we've had a terrible winter here in New York this winter. I mean, we had snow and snow and snow and snow and snow and snow. And so that stuckness that I was talking about with my friend, you know, not being able to pay attention to emails or phone calls or anything that mattered was not really the winter. It was really this grief. And even when I talked to my friend, I said, I'm not depressed. I know I'm not depressed, but I'm just overwhelmed by life. That's what I said to her. I'm just overwhelmed. I just don't have the time for anything. So that's my opening thing to you, and we can talk about that and unpack that. But there's a lot there for us about
Yeah.
feeling stuck in grief and what grief really is like, and then maybe even we can get to I think I'm coming out of it. I'm not quite sure what I've done to come out of grief, and I'm ready for spring. But I have been talking about it in my own therapy, and I do EMDR therapy with my therapist. But let's talk about that. That's my topic.
There's a lot to unpack. I mean, we've discussed ambiguous grief a couple of times already in this series coming up. And I do know that you had two surgeries. And one of the things that I'd also like to throw in that pot is that even a positive change can evoke grief.
Hmm.
And one of our other presenters talked about this very, very briefly. We didn't have time to go in depth. Barbara works with persons who have mental health problems and addictions, so co-occurring. And
Hmm.
I asked her where grief would be with that population, and she said, you know, even giving up your substance, which is a good thing, also
Hmm.
creates a grief because that's your friend, right?
Sure.
Um, so, so I'm wondering if just some of the physical changes that have happened to you are contributing to this whole sense of life overwhelm, um, in some odd way, maybe, but also grief brain. You're describing grief brain, which is like a brain fog almost.
That's great. I've never heard that term. That's terrific, Patty.
We have a doctor who, um, Dr. Nick, because his name is hard for me to pronounce, he's in Greece, and he did a little overview of how the brain is affected in grief.
Uh-huh.
So there's your entire body is affected,
Hmm.
right? And because it alters the chemistry, the same chemistry and pathways that are involved in a lot of different things are involved in grief. So I have hope that you will move through this quickly with some tweaks, you know, whatever they may be, whether it's getting out and getting some exercise, and it's hard to do in snow. Um, you know, just
Spring is
relying,
coming. Spring is almost here, so it's really funny how my grief has also matched the winter and the spring.
having hope. You're a very hopeful guy. So, you know, and you have support, even though you feel like you've lost a huge chunk of that with the passing of your friend.
Hmm.
Yeah, that whole piece of having someone who knew your history so well, which is something I can resonate as well with. You knew my grandparents.
I did. I was thinking about that the minute I said that.
And when we lose that, when we lose that person, it's it's a shock for sure.
Right.
No, it is. It's very
Yes,
brave of you to come to talk.
it's more than the person, you know. I don't know what to talk about here, but like we're talking about my therapy. We've sort of been reviewing the last 50 years, but that piece around him being a witness, like, so it was more than him. It was just more than the losing of him. And I guess we experience that as we get older, you know, we're losing our friends and our loved ones, and death is all around us as we get older. It's really hard to, it gets lonelier or something.
Well, it's an invitation to grow your tribe, to restore different connections, and find ways to get the support that we
Well,
all.
that's the other side of grief, right? Is like, what's next? Like, what is possible? Like, if you go through the door on the other side of Easter, what's next? On the other side of spring, what's next?
That's it. Something just came to mind while we were talking because I also did a video on rituals here on Easter Sunday, which was a very small, you know, offering there of simple things you can do to remember your loved one.
Hmm.
And then another speaker has talked about maintaining a connection with the person that you've lost and how that happens. So I have every faith that you will do all the right things for yourself, Stephen. And you know that I'm a phone call away, even though I'm several states away, to offer some kind of support or be an ear. But when you're in grief, you know, it's exhausting.
Mm. I'll tell you another little interesting thing about my grieving of Neil. This is really, I think you'll enjoy this, Patty. Um, all of my loved ones who have passed are very close to me in spirit. I'm in the kitchen all the time, talking to my grandmother and my mother all the time as I do little kitchen things because I remember them so much in kitchen things, I'm peeling a soft-boiled egg or something. I'm thinking of my grandmother and what she used to do for me at breakfast time. And the strangest thing was after Neil died, I couldn't feel his spirit at all. It was very odd. I've never had that experience. And I really struggled with that for a couple of months. Like I didn't understand it. I mean, even though he was handicapped and I didn't expect him to go that quickly, I think. So I was trying to figure out in my mind, was he not ready to go? Why isn't he coming back to me? Why can't I feel his spirit? Is he in what they call the bardo in one tradition, I think? Is he in this place that he's just in the middle zone and he's not able to come back or something? I don't know. One of my friends suggested maybe I wasn't ready to experience him yet, and I think that might be true too. I eventually had a dream about him. I had a dream one night. I used to drive him places and all the time. And that's where we spent a lot of our time in the car talking on the way to the grocery store and whatnot. And in this dream, I come along in the car and he's stopped at a bus stop and I'm in my car and I pick him up at the bus stop and he gets in the car, and I think I was ready to, the dream sort of indicated that I was ready to have him back again, his spirit back or something in my life. So maybe something like that happened. And I feel him now a little bit more than I had a few months ago. But something about that was kind of interesting too, that I just didn't feel his presence the way I feel the presence of other ones who have passed.
Yeah. It is interesting, and no one has all those answers on this side, right?
Right,
We
right.
speculate, we hope, we
Uh,
try to make sense of things, make meaning out of loss, make meaning out of um, why we're feeling the way that we are. And so that was the hope of this series, was to help people open a conversation about it, not be afraid to talk about it,
mhm,
understand what they're experiencing as something as normal, and that if they're willing to explore it, it may help them recover more quickly. So you're a gift to everyone being willing to talk about this morning. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your friend. Um, and when we know that someone is in pain, that's another thing we learned in this series, and we feel that for them, we worry about them. That's a proxy grief. So by proxy, we feel the pain of the other person's suffering and
mm,
wanting them to get through this grief.
mm.
So Neil is doing us a service today, even though he isn't here visible in this podcast, right?
I think I'm thinking as you're talking, I assume grief is one of the most primal things that we've ever experienced as human beings. I'm thinking of those ancient megalithic tombs where they buried people, with their possessions and things. It's like the oldest thing we have before we even know what the ritual was they were doing or what the myths were around death.
Mhm.
But having loved someone and the loved person passes is probably the most primal thing in life. Like we just don't understand why love has to end if it does end, but the life ends, and it's so hard for us as human beings to accept that. And then there's all kinds of losses, like you were talking about the mixed piece of grief. I was thinking about divorce. I'm also divorced. And we never think about what you were saying before about the positive side, like something is really good. You were saying something about something is good. So the divorce is a good thing, like it's something I wanted. But then grieving all the good that I don't have, like the relationship was also good. I
That's
mean, it wasn't all bad. So the mixed piece of grief is, like something I really wanted and it was good, but I'm still grieving.
I'm so
Uh,
glad you brought that up because I did not have an opportunity to ask someone to talk about divorce. And of course, I'm divorced. And I was thinking, I really need to say that I had to grieve that. I
mhm,
grieved through the marriage when it wasn't working properly, which was a
mhm,
disappointment, which I was grieving. I grieved
mhm,
afterwards when people don't realize, yes, it's good, but it also, there was a relationship there, good or bad. There was someone that I spent life with, that I made meals for, that we did things together, that We
Right.
had babies together, and whether or not that person's head was in that game or not, my head was in the game. And so, the loss of that, the loss of not having that connection the way that I wished it could have been. So we grieve so many different things.
Sure. We
And
even grieve in that situation, we grieve the loss of our dream of what we thought we were holding together, the kind of family we were trying to create. And it's grieving for ourselves in a way. It's not only the other person, but we're grieving for ourselves about the dream that we thought we had. The loss of a dream is also a grief.
absolutely. And then there are things that people say that are just the wrong thing. The wrong thing to say, And so we really need to explore that uh, as well.
Yeah.
What is the right thing? I mean, I had a member of the clergy say to me, "Well, you knew the divorce was coming. Like, why should you be sad?" Well, you knew it was coming. Uh, and anticipatory grief is also another grief that we talk about here, right? We know something is coming. We know that death is coming of something, and we grieve it even before it's gone.
Mm.
So it's a complicated story. Grief has these little weavings in and out.
I think my wisdom at this point in life would be, what do we say in grief? I would just say that we're in this together. We're in it together as human beings and family. And I have this image of Job, and as Job was going through all his sufferings, and his friend just sat around with him and just grieved with him. And I think that's, rather than trying to fix someone's grief and just saying, "I'm with you.
That's it.
Let's sit with this together,
My
and
favorite term is "I'm here.
we'll get through this together.
I'm here."
We're a
And
family. We're a tribe. We're going to get through this."
yeah, and the other thing that happens in grief, and I talked about this a little bit in another video, which is and Dr. Nick mentioned this too, that people, when you're grieving, and maybe it's chemical, maybe it's something else, but we built a fence around ourselves. It's a protective thing. We sort of become insular and shut down in some ways. Our body is giving us time to heal and reflect, and we don't recognize it as that.
Mm,
And this protective fence shouldn't be the thing that keeps people from being around you. A lot of people don't want to be around a grieving person.
right.
They don't know what to say, they don't know what to do. So, so the advice there is just do something, get in that loop and
Yeah,
say, I'm here and I can do this and this and this for you. Maybe not that and that and that, but let's go get a meal, let's take a ride, let's go to the beach, let's, you know,
that's right.
make a
Life,
snail.
life goes on. We have to remember that too.
Yeah. So what is your plan to take care of yourself until you move out of this state of grief that you're in? Are you eating well? Are you sleeping?
Well, I do all those things that I don't know what I'm doing particular. That would be a question for you. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing in particular. I'm doing what I always do. I think it's very similar to depression for me. I think maybe that's my advice at the moment is, even when I'm depressed, I still need to like shower and put one foot in front of the other and just do what I'm supposed to do. I just need to just one step in front of the other, one task at a moment,
Yes.
and get through it. And part of that is, like you're saying, self-care. It's about showering and eating, and let's just do the one thing. What's the one right next thing that I can do? I am doing my therapy, my EMDR therapy, which is a great therapy, that's bilateral stimulation to help you think with both sides of your brain through something. One thing I know intellectually about grief too, and the therapy I've been doing, is that one grief often triggers all the other griefs you've ever had in your life.
That's right.
So that's something that's happening too. I was also thinking as we were talking, it's not only grief, we have grief not only about losing people, that's our number one grief maybe in life, but we have all kinds of disappointments and things that are griefs. Losing a job is a grief, and or not being accepted into something is a grief, and
Yes. Yes.
having your children disappoint you is a grief or something. So there's all kinds of grief.
Yes, there are. And so you've touched on many of the topics that we've brought throughout April, and that's another gift. Thank you for reiterating, because the more people hear, the more they'll remember, and
Mhm.
the more they can carry into taking care of themselves or taking care of someone else who they know is in grief.
And grief is the other side of love, isn't it? It's just when you're saying about building the fence, we want to protect our love is a risk. And when you love someone, of course you're going to lose them someday. And then we might want to protect ourselves from even loving. But it's the other side of love that our grief is we're grieving someone that we've loved. And it's the other side of attachment, another part of attachment when we lose somebody that we're attached to, the whole attachment theory,
Yes.
So
And
it's just
one of the other guests, I'm sorry to interrupt you. One of the
mm,
other guests talked about necessary losses. She was
uh-huh.
reflecting on Judith Fjord's book years ago of how we have to have, the seed has to die in order for the plant to grow. In other words, we have to have something, we have to let go of something which is a loss. And any trauma has loss attached to it, and any loss has grief attached to it. So if we're just mindful, oh, yeah, I didn't get that job. That's a loss, and I can grieve that. I can feel bad. A lot of people will go in sitcoms, what happens? The girl
Right.
left him, he lost his job, the dog ran away, whatever it is that happens, and the guys pat him on the back and say, let's go get a beer or whatever. And you see them in the bar, and the next day the guy is, chasing after another job or woman or dog or whatever. And so everybody handles grief differently, and your tribe will handle things differently. But the reality is, um, you're going to experience it. Something will happen. You will have a response. Part of that will be grief. And part of that is recognizing that and saying, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. And if there is, it's temporary. This is a normal thing. I'm going to move through this in the best way that I can.
Another thing to remember, I think, is if we have our tribe around us or we're doing therapy or something, we're working some process where we're consciously working with our grief, it does have a narrative arc. You do come out of it. The Christians believe this myth of Jesus, the story of Jesus is life and death and resurrection. So it's got like a narrative arc. And you do come out of grief, even though you don't feel like you're ever going to come out of it. You have to just remember that it has a narrative arc, and it does. You come through it, and you move on to the next thing. It takes time. I always teach people in therapy very often that grief takes at least a year. If you have a really close loved one, you're going to get through all the anniversaries and all the dates and Father's Day and birthdays and Thanksgiving and Christmas with the person without missing it. And then you sort of move on. But it's got a narrative arc to it, and the narrative arc ends in hope and happiness and a change and a new beginning.
Let's hope that for most people. Yes.
You hold on to that even in the darkest moment, that this isn't going to be forever if you're working something through
Yes.
and not getting stuck in it. Some people do get stuck, right? Some people are in their grief for a long time.
They have a prolonged
A
grief problem, yeah.
woman might lose a child and never get over it, so.
Yeah. And there is treatment for that, but let's hope it doesn't go that far, that people will recognize it before it becomes a prolonged grief and a clinical issue. And that's part of your tribe, is to help you recognize when things are not moving, you're not moving through this in a way that's
Yeah.
healthy. Because another video will be on people that just do not process their grief and what happens to them, because your body will tell the tale in the end, if you're not paying attention to it.
It's
So
similar to depression, right? I mean,
yes,
lots of folks don't recognize they're depressed, and their friends have to say, you're depressed.
that's right.
My friend had to say to me, "You're grieving." I didn't even know I was grieving.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's interesting because the brain pathways for grief and depression and guilt and what's the other one that we often see in grief? Shame, all those other they're pretty much the similar pathways.
Mm.
And a lot of the chemistries are similar. So so the situations are different, right? And the treatments may be different depending on what symptomatology or what is actually showing up. But but people will come out eventually on the other side of it, however long it takes. And we can't rush someone through their grief. It
No, it
happens,
takes.
it happens in their own time. Stephen, I am so grateful that you took the time out to talk to me about this today.
Good.
I love to
I,
see you smiling. I would like to see that more. And so maybe you'll come back and let us know how you're doing next month. I think that this 30-day series will definitely turn into more than 30 days because of the response that we've had so far. People wanting to talk about it, providers wanting to share what they know. And this to me is a plus because before this, nobody was talking about it that I knew. And now the word is out there, and that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
all right.
So I'm grateful for you. I'm sending love across the miles,
Thank you. Same to you.
and we'll meet again, but I'll say bye for now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.